You are about to witness a film unprecedented for the independent tri-state film community. Horrors of War is a brilliant movie that mixes the genres of horror and period World War II films. Shot literally all over Ohio, the stalwart souls behind this motion picture defied the limitations of budget and created a film that shows that with passion, any film is possible. You're about to meet true, passionate independent filmmakers, and they can only be seen right here on Viewfinder. Peter John Ross and John Whitney are the leaders of the ragtag bunch of filmmakers who took on the ridiculously ambitious independent film Horrors of War. They join us today to explain how and why they took on this amazing cinematic mission. Welcome to Viewfinder, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's identify everybody. So I said your names in the opening, but I want people to know who you are. You're
John Whitney.
Right?
Peter John Ross.
Now, this was like a Coen Brothers thing almost. I mean, you don't usually find two directors who are not related who can work on a motion picture together. So I understand this came about because originally you guys were going to do like 3 shorter films, and it just kind of transmutated into one long film, and both of you directed half of it, right?
Correct.
How did this whole thing start?
Well, it started off originally as just a 30-minute story of a World War II horror story as part of a horror anthology of 4 stories. But when that movie fell apart, I took my idea, I'd kept it, and decided to do 3 World War II horror stories, each one written and directed by a different person. But eventually that came to be that we just did 1 feature, but we still had 2 directors, so I directed the first half, John directed the second half.
Now that's pretty
He felt
unselfish.
guilty about dropping me, that's what it was. He didn't want to drop me, so.
So you directed the first half, and you directed the last half.
Correct.
Now, how did you keep the look cohesive? Because, I mean, you're both 2 independent, individual artists. How did you keep the look cohesive?
Well, we tried to, during pre-production meetings, we talked about the look and how the feel of the film and how we would try to melt our 2 styles together, and I think we did a pretty good job doing it. We knew that we didn't want to do anything crazy to really set ourselves apart because we wanted to have a cohesive look.
Did you feel you had to compromise either one of your visions to make something cohesive?
No, not at all.
I think that's your Midwest roots, because you...
No, a lot of it was, you know, we one of the tough things about it is that you needed to share a vision, and I think we did. We talked about our influences, what we intended to do, and I think we had a pretty good meeting of the minds of, we had the same movie in mind to make.
Excellent. And did you have the same DP for both halves?
No, 2 different DPs.
2 different DPs?
Yeah.
Wow. Now that's a real challenge.
Yes.
Because you 2 different looks. So the DPs had to collaborate on filtration, lenses, and that kind of film stocks. Whoa. And DPs, they expose differently. So literally, I mean, did they have to get together and talk about f-stops? We'll have the DP on
in pre-production, the 4 of us sat down together quite a bit.
And pre-production is everything on an independent film, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, I wish we'd had more of it.
Right. You always want to have more, but unless you have it, an independent film can go south real quick. Now, where are you guys from originally?
Originally, I'm from Dayton, and then I came to Columbus to go to Ohio State Film School, and stayed because I started working in production.
Now, see, people wouldn't think you could work in production in Ohio.
I know, they don't think that there's money out there to be made, but, you know, people make commercials, people make television shows. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made out there. But
yeah, well, I do real well in Ohio since '92. I came here in '92 from Chicago.
Absolutely.
So, and you're from?
Originally born near Columbus, lived in Cincinnati for a long time. I was named after Pete Rose and Johnny Bench.
Get out of here.
Nope.
Excellent, excellent. Now, the thing that I loved about your film the most is that I bought it. I bought the premise. Because first somebody comes to you and says it's a war horror film, World War II horror film. And you're like, okay. And, I don't want to give too much away, but I could totally buy into the premise that, Hitler would want to create some kind of super soldiers and monsters, and these mutations are what they happen upon. That was brilliant.
That's based on kind of fact.
Right.
You
That
take
guy
that.
was crazy.
He was nuts. Anybody with that little mustache is a little crazy.
Exactly.
Making a fashion statement like that, he's got a little.
But how did that come off? Because I mean, you don't usually see those 2 genres mixing. So were you guys brainstorming one night and said, what would be cool?
That was me.
Yeah.
I just one night had this idea. I had this idea that originally was going to be set in the Gulf War, but Not a lot of deserts in Ohio, so it's not easy to do on an independent budget. Then I thought about potentially Korea, trying to be forward-thinking. Maybe we'll start a war there too. But then the woods don't really look like the jungle there.
Right.
And it was during a train trip through Europe that I realized Germany and France look an awful lot like Ohio. And that's what keyed it all off for me.
And you know what? That's genius, because we know, in the Cincinnati area particularly, there's a lot of German influence in architecture and everything because of the influx of the immigrants who came here. And so I thought that was brilliant. See, to me, that's so Robert Rodriguez. Use what you got. And another thing that was very Robert Rodriguez about you, Cash, that I really appreciated, on your DVD, you give film tips. I particularly like the cutting on the action tip, which I thought was really cool, and the whole L edit, when you split the edit and everything else. What made you want to do that?
I teach editing classes, on my own. I thought it was a really good thing. I've written a lot of articles on filmmaking, and it was, it definitely is about marketing as well. So, it'll bring people that otherwise wouldn't watch a World War II or horror film to the site, maybe find something to buy the DVD for.
Smart.
But at the same time, it's, important because you see a lot of the independent filmmakers all over Ohio. They need some work too, and these are some just real basic tips of how to get some of that information across to people.
Kind of that pay forward mentality, I think, that helps out in the independent world, because there's a certain type of person who loves the independent film.
Yes.
They're so ravenous about the subject.
Yes.
That they're just going to eat this stuff up. So this is a brilliant stroke. As Ross says, I did do all that stuff, and it's a very good idea. And it's working for us.
Could you be happy having your career go well in Ohio? Do you feel like you have to move to New York or L.A. to make movies? But if this film really garnered somebody to say, I want to invest in you guys and you can keep shooting in Ohio, would you do it?
I have friends that have come and gone to L.A. and back. They went there and they worked in the business. They got chewed up and spit back out. They came back, and I'm still here. And I made more movies than they did as they were PAing in some Spielberg film or whatever, and it's very sad the way that town can eat you up.
Right.
There's no reason why you can't make movies in Ohio. We've proved that.
Yes.
Everybody, there are people that have cameras. There's talented people that can be crews, can be on the crew, and there's no reason to go out there.
Well, I know for a fact Cincinnati I've worked in L.A. and New York, and I'll put a Cincinnati crew up against an L.A. or a New York crew any day. And their attitude. And I've shot in the Midwest too, in Minneapolis and such, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Well, speaking about making movies in Ohio, set up this first clip so we can see what you made in Ohio. What's the first clip?
This first clip is a scene from the movie. I believe it's from the half I directed. This is a setup for the scene. Is GI soldiers are they're in an occupied territory. And they just witnessed some pretty grim stuff, and then something supernatural is kind of following up some of the mistakes they've made.
Shot right here in Ohio by these two brilliant directors.
This is shot in Mechanicsburg, Ohio.
Fantastic. Let's check it out.
All right.